There once was a ship that put to sea. The name of the ship was a Billy of Tea. The winds blew up her bow, up down, oh below my bully boys blow. She'd not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the time is done, we'll take our leave and go. Take our leave and go. Someday the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the time is done, we'll take our leave and go. Before the boat had hit the water, the whale sail came up and caught her. All hands to the side, harping and fought her when she dived down low. She'd not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the time is done, we'll take our leave and go. Take our leave and go. Someday the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the time is done, we'll take our leave and go. Someday the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the time is done, we'll take our leave and go. Take our leave and go. Take our leave and go.
With all this plastic,
what shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? Head into the ocean.
Tell Mum and Dad we think we should
Use some brushes and make of wood.
They need
Great and work as good. Keep the ocean cleaner. What shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? Head into the ocean.
Plastic bags can cause commotion.
Turtles eat them in the ocean. A bag for life is the best solution. Keep the oceans cleaner. What shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? Head into the ocean.
Use paper, cloth and glass instead.
Recycle waste in our eco shed.
Don't let it end up on our seabed.
Keep our ocean cleaner. What shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? What shall we do with all this plastic? Head into the ocean.
Plastic free is our solution.
What will be your contribution?
Put an
end to this pollution. Keep the oceans cleaner. That's what we do with all this plastic. That's what we do with all this plastic. That's what we do with all this plastic. Make our oceans cleaner.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Mr. Spracklin here, and it's Monday, the 10th of January, 2022. It's wonderful to be here at the Prince of Wales School and to be together in our virtual whole school assembly. Today, we're going to be having a think about someone up on the screen. In fact, 2 people that are up on the screen. I wonder if anybody watching can recognize any of these 2 people. Have a little look at the photos or the pictures or the paintings. Can you recognize who might be in those pictures? I'll give you a couple of seconds to look at that. Have a little think. Maybe put a comment in the comment box if you know who either of these 2 people are. I hear a few ideas being discussed. Wow. Do you recognize any of these people? This is probably the person that you recognize. I heard it in the distance, a few people saying this. This is Mary Anning, and she lived in Dorset 200 years ago. This is Evie Swire, and she lives in Dorset now. Now, I wonder why we might be talking about these 2 people today. Have a little think. Let's get rid of that banner so you can see everything that's on my slides. Let's move over to the next question. I wonder how they could be connected. There's a connection between these two people that we're going to find out more about now. Now, Mary lived in Lyme Regis. Has anyone been to Lyme Regis before? She came from a very poor family. There's an arrow showing where Lyme Regis is, here in Dorset on the south coast of England. Now, Mary didn't get much chance to go to school. She learnt to read and write in church at Sunday school. We're going to watch a short video now about Mary Anning.
For most of us, a trip to the beach means a dip in the sea and an ice cream. But did you know that some beaches are also a prime place for looking for fossils? One of the most celebrated fossil hunters who ever lived was Mary Anning. How did her story begin? In the early 1800s, when Mary was just a baby, the story goes that there was a great storm in her local town, Lyme Regis, which borders across Dorset and Devon in England. Mary was being looked after by 3 women who sought shelter from the storm. Suddenly, a great bolt of lightning struck the group, killing the women who were looking after Mary. Somehow Mary survived the lightning strike. Some people said that the lightning changed Mary's personality, that before the lightning strike she had been quiet and often unwell, and after the lightning strike she suddenly seemed bubblier and brighter. For a while, as Mary grew up, she and her father would walk along the coastline hunting for curiosities, and her father taught her how to chisel away at the rock to expose the fossils without damaging them. Mary developed fine skills as a fossil hunter and soon had a real passion for finding interesting specimens. They didn't call them fossils in those times. In fact, they had all sorts of strange names for them, like vertebrates, snake stones, lady fingers, and the devil's toenails. Mary grew up in a poor family, and she learned to read and write at her local Sunday school lessons. She sold curios she found on the coast for a penny each at a table by the beach, helping her family get by. One day, fossil hunting, Mary's father slipped off a dangerous cliff top on the Lyme Regis coast. He fell, and he wasn't able to recover from the fall. Mary was a religious woman, and she was known to spend time thinking about God and reading the Bible, especially when she had close encounters. Fossil hunting on the cliffs at Lyme Regis was a dangerous business, and was what led to her father's death, and there were many landslides on the coast where Mary went fossil hunting. Once, she was even nearly hit by a runaway cart. None of this deterred her from her passion for fossils. To make ends meet, Mary continued to find fossils, now with her trusty dog, Tray. Mary continued also to read about fossils and to search for them in memory of her father. A year later, she came across something strange in one of the slate rocks. It had an unusual shape and was very different to the other fossils she'd found. She left Tray by the rock and ran off to find some people who could help her to take it back to the house, so that she could chisel the rock away and find out what the shape was. After many days and weeks of delicately chiseling away at the rock, eventually Mary uncovered a huge fossil. This fossil turned out to be a plesiosaur. In the years following, Mary found other great discoveries. She was able to sell the fossils she found for a good profit. Some even went for £100 to £200, which is the equivalent of selling a fossil today for £15,000. Those finds were vital for her family's well-being, and when she was earning good money, she also donated some of her earnings to her local church. Some people at the time said that Mary only had the skills she had, looking for and understanding fossils, because of the time she was struck by lightning. Nowadays, we know that women can have just as big an impact on science as men. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Mary got very frustrated in her later years because men of science would visit her for her ideas and her expertise, and then say nothing about her contribution in the scientific papers they published. There were people, however, who did recognise Mary's achievements and her amazing fossil finds and contributions to paleontology. Eventually, when Mary Anning died, a stained glass window was put up in her local church by her vicar and members of the Geological Society of London to recognise how much admiration both the Geological Society and the church had for her. The fossils that Mary found have changed the way that people think about life on Earth. Now we know that all life here today evolved from things that existed thousands, even millions of years ago. And the fossils we find now are evidence of the living things that were here in the past.
Now, as a child, Mary helped her dad to dig up the fossils. They cracked open rocks and found fossils in falling cliffs. It was dangerous work. Do you know what this fossil is? It's called an ammonite, and it is like a rock imprint of a creature that lived in the sea millions of years ago. Sadly, Mary's dad died when Mary was still young, but Mary continued to search for fossils, carefully digging them out and selling them to help pay for food for her family. For many years, her dog Trey was her faithful companion. Can anyone see Trey in this picture? That's right, just there, behind Mary. Mary discovered all of these creatures. Can you guess what they were? I'm sure some of you know the names of these creatures already. This is an ichthyosaur. This is a plesiosaur. And this is a dimorphodon. She even discovered fossilized poo. A coprolite. Mary's plesiosaur fossil was so incredible, people didn't believe she had found it. It's a fake. I agree. Mary wasn't allowed into the meeting where her fossil was discussed. Why don't you let me tell you about it? Eventually, the men decided it was real after all. Some men even wrote about Mary's fossils as if they had found them. Let me tell you about this incredible fossil I found. How do you think Mary felt about that? Taking away the work that she had done and claiming it was their own. That doesn't sound right to me. The world has used me unkindly, thought Mary. Now, geologists and scientists know that Mary did some amazing work finding new and unusual fossils. But how is Mary connected with Evie, who we met at the start of this assembly? Well, Evie says, I live in Lyme Regis and think that Mary is amazing. I was really shocked to discover that there is no statue of her. Did you know that only 3 out of every 100 statues is of a named woman? I think Mary deserves to be remembered. I want to be a scientist, and I think we need a statue of Mary to remind everyone that women are good at science too. So, my question to you, Prince of Wales School, do you think there should be a statue built for Mary? Do you agree with Evie? Tell the people around you. I'll give you 30 seconds to discuss that. Do you agree with Evie? Now, lots of people got behind Evie. Lots of famous people, including people like Sir David Attenborough, pictured in the top there. And there was a campaign called Mary Anning Rocks. And the really positive thing I can tell you about today is that campaign has worked, and there is going to be a statue built in Lyme Regis to celebrate Mary Anning, which I just think is absolutely wonderful. In fact, Mr. Spracklin took this off a recent news article. This was from The Guardian, and it says that the perfect spot has been found for the Mary Anning fossil hunting statue. And we're very close to the unveiling. In fact, I believe they've given a date now in the next couple of months where the new statue dedicated to Mary Anning, and you might be able to spot another person, not a person, another animal that's going to be in the statue. Her faithful dog there is going to be following along behind her. This is actually an artist's impression of what the statue is going to be like. So if you ever go and visit Lyme Regis, you'll be able to see the statue of Mary Anning, and you'll know about her story and about the battle that Evie's done. Evie's only young, like you, but she thought that something wasn't right. It wasn't right that Mary didn't have a statue, and she went about to make that change. That's all I wanted to share with you in Assembly today. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to leave you with, I'll tell you what we'll leave you with. We'll leave you with our little video here. Thank you for watching.
5, 4, 3,